December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor burns. America's military aviation lies shattered on the tarmac. But from those ashes would rise the most devastating aerial armada the world had ever seen. Today we're counting down the 10 deadliest American planes of World War II, aircraft that didn't just win battles, they redefined what air power could achieve. Some racked up kill ratios that seem impossible, while others delivered payloads that changed the course of human history. But all of them shared one thing in common. They made America's enemies fear the skies. The P-40 Warhawk wasn't the fastest, it wasn't the most maneuverable, and it certainly wasn't the most advanced American fighter of World War II. But what it lacked in performance, it made up for in pure lethality and availability when America needed it most. This was the fighter that held the line when everything seemed lost. Built by Curtiss Wright, the P-40 was already in production when Pearl Harbor thrust America into war. With its distinctive shark-mouth nose art made famous by the Flying Tigers, the Warhawk became the face of American defiance in the early, desperate days of the conflict. The aircraft was armed with 6 50 caliber Browning machine guns, delivering a concentrated burst of firepower that could shred enemy aircraft in seconds. What made the P-40 dangerous wasn't raw specs, it was how Americans flew it. The Warhawk couldn't turn with a zero, but it could dive faster and hit harder. Pilots mastered boom and zoom attacks, strike from above, unleash firepower, then escape before the enemy could react. The Flying Tigers proved its worth. Fighting in China before America entered the war, they racked up a kill ratio near 15-1. 299 Japanese planes downed for just 14 P-40 losses. Suddenly, Japan's air dominance was broken by a fighter that refused to play by their rules. More than 13,700 P-40s served worldwide. In skilled hands, the Warhawk showed that victory wasn't about the best specs, it was about the right tactics and the courage to use them. Fast, heavily armed and built like a flying battering ram, the Douglas A-20 Havoc was America's answer to the need for a versatile attack aircraft that could adapt to any mission. This twin-engine bomber didn't just attack targets, it obliterated them, with a combination of speed, firepower and tactical flexibility that made it one of the war's most effective ground attack platforms. The A-20 was designed for one purpose: to get in fast, hit hard and get out alive. Powered by 2 Wright R2600 Cyclone engines, it could reach speeds of over 350 miles per hour at low altitude, making it faster than many single-engine fighters of its era. This speed wasn't just for show, it was survival insurance for crews flying dangerous low-level attack missions against heavily defended targets. What set the Havoc apart was sheer versatility. It could mount 8.50 cals, 20mm cannons, even 75mm guns, plus 4,000 pounds of bombs or torpedoes. In the Pacific, it became the spearhead of skip bombing runs, racing in at wave-top height, skipping bombs into Japanese ships with deadly precision. Entire convoys vanished under its attacks. In Europe, the A-20 turned night hunter, raiding transport lines, airfields and troop columns. Fast, heavily armed and hard to stop, it struck targets across the continent. Over 7,400 were built, and wherever they flew, Axis forces learned to fear the Havoc. The Grumman TBF Avenger earned its name through one of the most lopsided naval battles in history, and it did so by transforming from what initially seemed like a disaster into America's most lethal carrier-based torpedo bomber. This aircraft didn't just sink ships, it eliminated entire enemy fleets and changed the balance of power in the Pacific. When the Avenger made its combat debut at the Battle of Midway in June 1942, it seemed destined for failure. Of the 6 TBFs launched from Hornet, 5 were shot down, and the 6th returned so badly damaged it crash-landed on the carrier deck. But this disastrous introduction masked the aircraft's true potential, which would soon be revealed in the most dramatic fashion possible. The TBF Avenger was built around one weapon, the 2,200-pound Mark 13 torpedo, capable of sinking any Japanese warship with a single hit. Its bomb bay carried the massive torpedo, backed by heavy defensive guns in the nose, turret and belly. At first, torpedo attacks failed. Slow, predictable runs made easy targets. But by 1943, pilots perfected coordinated strikes with dive bombers and fighters, overwhelming defenses from every angle. The Avenger's peak came in the Marianas Turkey Shoot and the Battle of the Philippine Sea, where Task Force 58 launched a record 400-mile strike that crushed Japanese naval air power. More than 9,800 were built, sinking more enemy tonnage than any other US aircraft. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt was a monster, the largest, heaviest single-engine fighter of World War II. But this heavyweight champion of the skies earned its reputation through sheer, overwhelming lethality that made it one of the most feared aircraft in the American arsenal. The P-47 didn't just fight, it dominated through superior firepower, incredible durability, and the ability to carry enough ordnance to level small towns. Weighing in at over 17,000 pounds when fully loaded, the P-47 was powered by a massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, producing 2,800 horsepower. This powerhouse combination gave the Thunderbolt a top speed of 433 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, making it one of the fastest fighters in the world at high altitude. But speed was just the beginning of the P-47's lethal capabilities. The P-47 Thunderbolt packed 8 50 caliber Brownings, more firepower than many bombers. With over 400 rounds per gun, its cone of destruction could rip enemy planes apart in seconds. Its true strength was versatility. The Jug carried 3,000 pounds of bombs, rockets or napalm, hitting ground targets like a bomber, while still dominating dogfights. In Europe, Thunderbolts flew 546,000 sorties, dropped 132,000 tons of bombs, and fired 135 million rounds. Pilots claimed 3,700 air kills and destroyed thousands more on the ground. To German troops, the roar of its guns became the dreaded voice of doom. Over 15,600 were built, the most produced American fighter of the war. Named after aviation pioneer Billy Mitchell, the North American B-25 Mitchell medium bomber became synonymous with American airpower innovation and devastating effectiveness. This twin-engine bomber didn't just drop bombs. It pioneered new forms of aerial warfare that transformed how air forces approached ground attack missions. The Mitchell's most famous mission literally flew off the deck of an aircraft carrier to strike the Japanese homeland. But that spectacular raid was just the beginning of its lethal career. The B-25 Mitchell began as a balanced medium bomber, but battlefield innovation turned it into a flying gunship. Standard 50 cals gave way to terrifying upgrades, most famously the G and H models, armed with a 75mm cannon from the Sherman tank, plus multiple heavy machine guns. One pass from a Mitchell could unleash the firepower of an entire squadron. Its deadliest tactic was skip bombing, charging in at wave-top height, skipping bombs across the water into Japanese ships. The risks were extreme, but the results wiped out entire convoys. The Mitchell's legend was sealed with the 1942 Doolittle raid, when 16 B-25s launched from a carrier to strike Japan itself. Though damage was light, the psychological shock forced Japan into costly strategic mistakes. Flying over 63,000 combat sorties and serving in every theatre, the B-25 proved itself as one of America's most versatile and lethal warplanes. Nearly 10,000 were built, serving long after the war ended.
The Lockheed P-38 Lightning was unlike any fighter that had come before it. A twin-engine, twin-boom design that looked like something from science fiction but fought like a demon from hell. The Japanese gave it a nickname that revealed their respect and fear: 2 planes, 1 pilot. But American pilots knew it by a different name, the Fork-tailed Devil, and they used it to achieve some of the most spectacular aerial victories of the war. The P-38's unique configuration wasn't just for show, it was engineering genius that created capabilities no conventional fighter could match. The twin Allison V-17 10 engines provided 2,600 horsepower combined, giving the Lightning a top speed of 414 miles per hour and the ability to operate at altitudes exceeding 44,000 feet. The twin-boom design also allowed for unprecedented armament concentration: 6 4.50 caliber machine guns and 1 20mm cannon, all mounted in the nose and firing straight ahead with no convergence issues. The P-38's nose-mounted guns gave it unmatched accuracy, no convergence issues, just concentrated firepower that could shred enemy planes with short bursts. Its greatest asset, though, was range. With drop tanks, the Lightning flew over 2,600 miles, escorting bombers deep into enemy territory and striking targets others couldn't reach. P-38 Second hunted over enemy bases, destroying aircraft in the air and on the ground. The Lightning's record is legendary. It downed more Japanese aircraft than any other US fighter, including the mission that killed Admiral Yamamoto in 1943. It also produced America's top 2 aces, Richard Bong with 40 kills and Thomas Maguire with 38. More than 10,000 were built, securing air superiority wherever they flew. The Vought F-4U Corsair was a fighter so advanced that the Navy initially rejected it for carrier operations, but once it reached combat, it became the most lethal piston-engine fighter in American service. With its distinctive inverted gull wings and massive propeller, the Corsair looked like a predator, and it fought like one, achieving kill ratios that seemed impossible and earning a reputation that struck terror into enemy pilots across the Pacific. The Corsair was powered by the 2,250 horsepower R-2800 Double Wasp, spinning a massive 13-foot propeller. Its inverted gull wing gave clearance and speed 446 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest piston fighters ever. Armed with 6.50 caliber Brownings and 2,400 total rounds, it could unleash sustained firepower that few opponents could survive. Precise wing convergence created a cone of destruction that shredded enemy planes. Marine and Navy pilots perfected boom and zoom tactics, diving at high speed, striking hard, then climbing away before Japanese fighters could respond. The strategy was so effective that Japanese pilots often avoided Corsair engagements altogether. With an 11-to-1 kill ratio, over 2,140 victories, and the dreaded nickname Whistling Death, the Corsair became one of the most feared aircraft of World War II. More than 12,500 were built, serving into Korea and securing its place among history's deadliest fighters. The North American P-51 Mustang was the fighter that changed everything. Built around a British engine in an American airframe, this aircraft didn't just achieve air superiority, it redefined what air superiority meant by combining performance, range, and lethality in a package that made it the ultimate escort fighter and one of the most deadly aircraft ever built. The P-51's transformation came with one change: the British Merlin engine. Suddenly, the Mustang could fly 380 miles per hour at 25,000 feet with over 1,600 miles of range, or more than 2,000 with drop tanks. It became the first fighter able to escort bombers anywhere in Europe and return home. Armed with 6.50 caliber Brownings and nearly 1,900 rounds, the Mustang carried enough firepower for multiple kills on a single mission. Its convergence at 1,000 feet created a kill zone few enemies escaped. What made it devastating was how it reshaped the air war. Before the Mustang, bombers flying into Germany were slaughtered. With P-51 escort, raids struck Berlin, Munich and beyond under constant protection. German pilots suddenly faced American fighters over their own airfields, forced into combat on Allied terms. The results were crushing. 4,950 kills credited to Mustangs, more than any Allied fighter. Groups like the 357th destroyed hundreds in months, while aces like George Preddy tallied dozens of victories. Over 15,000 were built, and they didn't just dominate the skies, they made victory inevitable. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress earned its name through an ability to absorb punishment that seemed impossible and still complete its mission. This four-engine heavy bomber didn't just drop bombs, it pioneered strategic bombing doctrine and proved that precision daylight attacks could cripple enemy war production. The B-17 became the symbol of American air power, but behind that symbol was an aircraft capable of delivering devastating destruction while surviving battles that would have destroyed any other bomber. The B-17 Flying Fortress was built on a radical idea, a bomber that could defend itself while striking deep targets. The B-17 Graham bristled with 13.50 caliber machine guns arranged to cover every approach. Enemy fighters charging a formation faced withering crossfire from hundreds of guns at once. Offensively, it carried up to 8,000 pounds of bombs over 1,800 miles, guided by the advanced Norden bombsight. This allowed crews to hit factories, refineries and rail hubs with unprecedented precision, crippling the infrastructure Germany depended on to wage war. Flying in tight box formations, waves of B-17 second became nearly impregnable fortresses in the sky. Precision raids methodically dismantled German industry, while the psychological effect on Luftwaffe pilots was severe. The numbers tell the story. Over 291,000 sorties flown, 640,000 tons of bombs dropped, and more than 12,700 built. Though gunners' kill claims were inflated, the fortress still carved a reputation as the backbone of the Allied bombing campaign and the template for strategic air power for decades to come. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress wasn't just the deadliest American aircraft of World War II, it was the deadliest weapon ever created up to that point in human history. The Superfortress was the most advanced aircraft of its time, featuring innovations that wouldn't become standard for years. A pressurized cabin let crews fly above 30,000 feet, beyond most fighters and flak. 4 2,200 horsepower, Wright R 3,350 engines gave it a 365 miles per hour top speed and over 5,000 miles of range. Its revolutionary defense system used remote-controlled turrets with 12.50 caliber guns and a 20mm tail cannon, all managed by an automated fire control system for unmatched accuracy and concentrated firepower. The B-29's true strength was in its bomb load and precision. It carried up to 20,000 pounds, double a B-17, and delivered it with radar-guided accuracy, day or night, through clouds or darkness. Its most destructive conventional strike came the 9th of March, -10, 1,945, when 334 B-29 second dropped 1,665 tons of incendiaries on Tokyo, killing 100,000 and leveling 16 square miles, more than entire European campaigns. But history was made on the 6th of August, 1945, when the Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, Bockscar bombed Nagasaki. The two missions killed over 200,000 and forced Japan's surrender, ending World War II without an invasion. B-29 second flew 34,000 sorties, dropped 161,000 tons of bombs, and devastated Japan's war industries. With over 3,900 built, their technological edge overwhelmed enemy defenses and laid the foundation for Cold War nuclear deterrence. No aircraft has had a more decisive impact on a global war.